All right, let's dive into something pretty incredible. Tucked away in the Old Testament, there's a passage so descriptive of the life and death of Jesus that it's often called the fifth gospel. Today, we're going to try to unlock the mystery of Isaiah 53. So the whole thing centers on this one big question. This ancient text describes a figure, a suffering servant, and honestly, his identity has been debated for, well, centuries. So who is he? What's the deal? Okay, so this text, it's from the book of the prophet Isaiah. And it's this really beautiful, but also super tragic poem. It almost feels like a prophecy that's just hanging in the air, waiting for the right person to show up. Just listen to some of the language here. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. I mean, you can feel the weight of those words, right? It's so specific. It's describing someone's suffering not for his own mistakes, but for what other people did. And here's what makes this so wild. We're talking about a text written around 700 BCE. That's 700 years before the life of Jesus. For Christians, that's not just a coincidence. It's everything. It's the foundation of their belief that Jesus was the one they'd been waiting for. Okay, so that brings us right back to the main question. Who is this servant? The search for his identity has really boiled down to two major interpretations that people have been discussing forever. So, on one side, you have a lot of rabbinic tradition that sees the servant as a symbol for the entire nation of Israel. And you can see why, right? Given the long history of exile and persecution the Jewish people have gone through, this poem could be seen as describing that collective national pain. But then on the other side, you have the Christian tradition, which has almost universally said, nope, it's not a nation, it's one person, a specific individual, the Messiah. But if you dig into the actual text, that Israel as the servant idea starts to get a little tricky. I mean, the servant's whole mission is to restore Israel. So how can Israel's mission be to restore itself? It's kind of circular. The text also calls him a perfect, sinless offering, which just doesn't line up with other parts of Isaiah, where the nation of Israel is described as sinful. All these little clues seem to point pretty strongly toward the servant being one distinct person. Okay, to really get what's going on here, we have to talk about a literary tool called metonymy. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. It's when you use one word to stand in for a related, bigger idea. So when the Bible talks about the blood of a sacrifice, it's not just talking about, the liquid. It's a stand-in, a powerful symbol for a violent, sacrificial death. And keeping that in mind really helps unlock the meaning of this whole passage. And that really brings us to the core of it all. Figuring out who the servant is, that's one part of the puzzle. But the real so what is why he suffers. His death isn't just a tragedy. It's presented as a sacrifice that literally changes everything. And the theology behind this sacrifice is just packed with meaning. You can break it down into 6 key ideas. First, there's substitution. He takes our place, our punishment. Then there's pardon. His suffering means our sins are forgiven. You've got propitiation. That's a big word, but it just means God's justice is satisfied. Redemption. He pays a price to buy us back. Justification. Through him, we're seen as righteous. And finally, reconciliation. The broken relationship between us and God is fixed. Every single one of those pieces is crucial. And this is where that 700-year-old echo becomes impossible to ignore for Christians. They look at all these deep theological ideas. They look at this ancient prophecy, and they see it all coming together perfectly in the life and especially the death of one person. And wow, the parallels they point to are incredibly specific. The writers of the New Testament were constantly saying, look, go back to Isaiah 53. Isaiah says he was pierced. The Gospel of John describes a soldier piercing Jesus' side. Isaiah says he was silent in front of his accusers. Matthew's Gospel says Jesus didn't answer them. Buried with the rich, healed by his wounds. I mean, the parallels are so detailed and so direct. For early Christians, this was the bedrock of their whole argument. And it's not just a one-off thing. Get this. Isaiah 53 is quoted or referenced more than 40 times in the New Testament. 40 times! It's so clear that for Jesus' first followers, this chapter wasn't just some old poem. It was the key, the divine blueprint for understanding why he had to die. So, where does that leave us? What's the lasting legacy of this ancient text? Well, for billions of people today, it's not just an academic exercise. It is a central, non-negotiable pillar of their entire faith. Think about it. The cross is the symbol of Christianity. But just as an event, a brutal execution, it needs an explanation. Why? Why did that have to happen? For Christians, Isaiah 53, written 7 centuries before, is the explanation. It's the answer to that fundamental question, why did the Messiah have to suffer and die? And this isn't supposed to be just some abstract idea you think about once in a while. It's meant to be deeply personal. The whole point is that understanding this enormous price that was paid should actually change how a believer lives every day, how they face challenges and temptation. Which leaves us with one final, pretty amazing thought. It's just remarkable, isn't it? How can a single poem, written almost 3,000 years ago, continue to have such a profound impact? How does it still provide this deep well of meaning and a foundation of faith for billions of people all over the world today?